Okay, so today I'm joined by Jonathan Berger. He's the CEO of The Kitchen, one of the most respected names in food tech venture building. As the investment arm of Strauss Group, The Kitchen has backed some of the most ambitious startups in the alternative protein and food innovation space, helping shape not just products, but platforms, ecosystems, and ultimately the future of food. Jonathan, welcome to the Protein Production Technology International.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Nick.
It's great to have you. Now, to kick us off, I'd love to get your take on what's exciting right now. When you think about what makes a category in alternative proteins truly investable, where are you seeing the most promise? So are you drawn to platform technologies, novel ingredients, or final consumer products?
So, mainly platform and novel ingredients. I think right now there is a great opportunity with the changes we see in the Trump administration. I think that the interest in reducing the amount of ultra processed food create many opportunity. And I think that there are trends that the novel ingredients are going to enjoy from. So this is a really exciting opportunity.
And sometimes what's exciting isn't what's loudest. Are there any underhyped or overlooked areas in the alt protein space that you think could quietly become major growth stories?
Yeah. So, as you may know, parity with ingredients that are currently in the market in mass is the main challenge. And one of the areas that can relatively easy be cost effective is our proteins that are coming from molecular farming. And this is something that is I wouldn't say that is missed, but it's underlooked. Yeah.
Now, given how quickly trends shift, especially in this sector, how do you personally separate short-term buzz from long-term value when looking at emerging tech or models?
Okay, that's an excellent question. So there is a lot of buzz, and now we understand that in the good years, some of the investors were what we call tourist investors. But I think the best way to separate is to really dive into the pain point and make sure that you understand what is the need. And to do that, you can speak with experts and validate the market need and the pain point and invest only in the best solution for those pressing points.
Mhm. And to what extent are external pressures like geopolitics or the climate crisis shaping where your attention goes as an investor?
Honestly, not too much because those are very unpredicted, they are very volatile, and it's risky to adapt yourself towards a trend that can change overnight. And I think that we all know by now the only constant thing right now is the change. We are trying not to be disturbed too much by that. In Israel, the geopolitics definitely play a role. Therefore, we make the necessary adjustment, like moving companies out of Israel for time being. But those are the only adaptations. So, in most of the things like climate crisis and things like that, those are very long-term trend that we are always trying to adapt to, but not changing the proposition too often.
We're going to move on to securing investment in a tougher climate now. The funding environment, Jonathan, has changed significantly compared to a couple of years ago. How has the typical founder pitch evolved? What's getting more scrutiny now?
Wow. I think this is probably the most significant change that we've seen. And some of the entrepreneurs professionally adapted to what is expected by investors, and some of them haven't. So I think that the companies should be built completely differently in the sense that we all recognized that food tech is not like SaaS, and the time to exit is much longer, and it's much more complicated to scale up, and so on. So first of all, I think that not only the pitch should change, but also the way entrepreneurs lead their businesses has changed. And we are seeing a more conservative entrepreneurs, much more modest, very much oriented to the cash flow. And I think from investor point of view and the funding environment, things like scale up, volume of sales, and even EBIT, how fast can we get to positive EBITDA? Those are the major changes that we've seen recently.
And with that in mind, what's the most common mistake founders making when trying to secure funding in today's climate?
This is very frustrating, but because I see many mistakes, unfortunately, and not all of them adapted to the new, I would say, appetite of investors. But the most common mistake is putting too much emphasis on technology, falling in love with your product and solution, and not listening carefully enough to what market need and what investors are interested in.
Beyond the obvious metrics like traction or IP, are there more intangible qualities like mindset, storytelling, or adaptability that move the needle for you?
Yeah, yeah. I think the most important thing is a rare combination that we look for entrepreneurs with far-reach vision that is combined with strong operational capabilities. In other words, the ability to see long-term and short-term simultaneously. So we definitely want entrepreneurs with vision that want to change the world, that see their product or service on a global scale, but are patient and modest to do it gradually and take baby steps toward that. And that also reflects in the capital efficiency that I described before, the modesty, and most important, focus, because there are many temptations for young companies to go that way and that way, speak with this partner or with this customer. You have to be extremely focused.
Yeah. And in a world of tighter capital, Jonathan, are you seeing more creative or non-traditional funding models emerge? I don't know, venture studios, milestone-based tranches, or SPVs that founders should be exploring?
Yeah, we've seen all of them, all of the above. And I think that venture studios in the last 3 years are like popping all over the place. We've seen SPVs, we've seen investors clubs, very creative solutions. Unfortunately, we have not seen significant government funding yet to the
Mhm.
sector, and I hope that will change.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about what separates early success from scale-ready momentum now. In your view, what really differentiates companies that make the leap from seed to Series A from those that stall?
Product market fit. I think when the market really, I would say, suck your product because it really has good product market fit, that changes everything. That shortens the sales cycle, that makes the income much faster and therefore funds for scale up. So if there is one thing that drives this momentum, superior product market fit.
And when it comes to readiness, how do you weigh things like unit economics versus go-to-market maturity at that Series A stage?
So go-to-market maturity at Series H is the most important. We can absorb unfavorable unit economics at the beginning. I think it is unrealistic to expect to be profitable from day one. But again, if you have excellent product market fit and a clear go-to-market strategy, unit economic will follow for sure.
Yeah. And are there any early indicators, green flags, let's call them, that tell you a team is ready to scale responsibly?
Yeah, so I prefer to see industry experts within the team. So ideally, someone that been there, done that, that just decided to leave I would say, the traditional industry and come to innovate in a young startup. This is a very green flag.
What about partnerships? How important is it for startups to have pilot customers and retail interest or even co-manufacturing agreements lined up as part of that Series A story?
Super important. And in the kitchen, we like to refer to them as design partners. So all the partners you mentioned are super relevant, depends what a startup is doing. But it is very important to have those partnerships. And before making investment, we speak with those partners and we really understand how the partnership look like.
Let's talk about cost parity and investor expectations now, and specifically the elephant in the room, it's cost parity. Is it still a non-negotiable for most investors, or are there other differentiators that can justify a premium?
I think that also has always been non-negotiable. I think that with today's pressure on margins and price increase and the inflation, I think that selling a product not at cost parity is a no-go.
Mm.
And it has always been, okay? And I think that in the past, investors were more patient to see the cost parity. I think this patience is lost now, but long term, this is non-negotiable.
And when it comes to storytelling, do investors tend to respond better to a clear cost down roadmap or premium brand play focused on loyalty over and value over price.
So the industry shifted, and now it is definitely a clear cost down roadmap, because this is the agenda of most of the food brands right now. They're all experiencing bad terms. And in the last 3 years, most of the large food companies are experiencing very limited growth, and most of their activities focus on core and cost down roadmap. So probably premium brand play was right a couple of years ago and probably will be right in a few years' time. But for now, it is cost down roadmap.
Have you seen any compelling examples of founders navigating that cost challenge without losing scale potential?
Yeah, I was speaking a couple of weeks ago in Zurich with one of the founders of Miti, and they are telling a compelling story about being very aware of consumers' need, but extremely focused on cost and proposing a solution at a profitable margin.
And finally, on that topic, Jonathan, how do you personally balance technical scalability with current cost of goods when deciding whether to invest in a company?
First of all, we want to see that the team has the capabilities of down the road get to the cost parity that's required. At the beginning, at the early stage, we want to see a clear roadmap, but we are patient and we are not expecting to see the profitability in an early stage.
Mhm. Let's shift now to partnerships. Beyond just writing a check, what do you think are the most effective ways for large corporates can meaningfully engage with startups, whether through pilots, co-development, or market access?
Okay, so this is a huge topic, and the kitchen is the corporate VC of Strauss Group, the second largest food company in Israel.
Hmm.
So we have gained a lot of mileage on this topic, but in the short time we have, I would try to summarize that to be ready before you talk with the corporate and make your homework professionally, which seldom happens
Mhm.
because the time of the executives in the corporate is so expensive that is very common to see corporates losing interest just because the partner was not prepared enough. So I think that the best solution are pilot programs, co-development, and market access may come later. But what's important, those pilot programs is not only to gain interest, but also build the trust between the two parties. So the corporate should be respectful of the most expensive resource of a startup, which is time and runway. And the startup should be also sensitive to the corporate challenge. And this is the priorities and the pressure on sales. Contrary to startups, corporates are measured by the quarter and they have to show significant growth quarter over quarter. And this is not coming from the startup. Therefore, everyone that is working with the startup is sacrificing their short term for the benefit of the long term. And the startup should be sensitive to that.
Of course, not all collaborations go smoothly. Where do you think corporates most often misread or mishandle the realities of working with early stage startups?
Nick, at the end of the day, it's all about the people. And this is where it starts, and this is where it also fails. So when you have the right people on both sides, meaning on the corporate side, executives with entrepreneurial mindset, and on the startup side, entrepreneurs with solid thinking, very structured, documented, etc. approach, this is where it clicks, and this is where we see successes. But if people do not click, those collaborations will fail, and most of them are failing.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite example, past or present, of a corporate startup collaboration that created real value for both sides?
Yeah, yeah. And I've seen that from very close, and both parties were really struggling. And there is a partnership of one of our portfolio companies which is called Mila, MEALA, and they're treating they're having an enzymatic process to proteins, which allow those proteins all kind of characteristics like absorbing water, etc. At the end of the day, you can have a formula without methyl cellulose. And the food industry is very much against methyl cellulose, but they ought to use it because of many reasons. And Mila is bringing solution that helps eliminate methyl cellulose and clean the label of many products. Now, Mila has collaborated with one of the largest ingredient companies in the world, multi-billion-dollar ingredient company. And again, there is an announcement in a few weeks' time, and you will find who this company is. And that was extremely challenging on both sides. So this corporate was asking so many things that Mila was not prepared for. And had the CEO had not brought the approach of always yes, no matter what they ask, I always say yes, this collaboration would have failed. And had this corporate had not been sensitive and flexible and patient enough to understand that this is first time in the world being done, and you have to wait and you have to give the startup their time. They're working their ass off. Give them the time to fix the problem. This again have succeeded. But after 2 years of struggling, the collaboration is out there. There is a global distribution agreement, and we are very optimistic for the potential of this startup corporate engagement.
It's good to hear. We featured Mila in our first edition in October 2022. It was. I shall be looking forward to that announcement. One final question, Jonathan. As corporates face their own innovation pressures, how can they structure partnerships in a way that supports startups without stifling their agility or pace?
So I think the best way is through those programs that we talked about before, the pilot programs, but make sure that you're very clear on the needs and the expectation and the problems need to be solved. Full selection process. But once you selected a startup, and it can be two startups or 3 startups out of 100 applicants, make sure you have the right people and the right commitment to work with this startup.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing your insights. It's been a real pleasure hearing your perspectives on where the smart money is heading and what it really takes to build and back the next generation of food tech leaders. Hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, Nick, thank you for excellent questions.